Hi there, I'm Dr. Bill Price, and I have the honor and privilege of being on an amazing podcast together with an amazing person called Prosper. And I've been asked to talk about passionately the neuroscience and neuroplasticity of how we do goals differently and live with intentionality. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place where we dive deep into the minds of thought leaders and entrepreneurs that are reshaping the way we live, work, and lead. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and I've got a question for you. Have you ever wondered why maybe some leaders seem to be operating in flow while others constantly are fighting fires? And if you are the one that's constantly fighting fires, then today's episode is going to be your backstage pass to understanding how to rewire your mind and your business for true performance. Now, our guest today is none other than Dr. Bill Price. Now, Dr. Bill, how are you doing today?
Prosper, what a privilege and honor for me to be here. I absolutely love your enthusiasm, and I am humbled and I'm thrilled to be on your amazing show. I've watched it many times, and I'm so excited when I am invited into the audience of what I would call heroes who have gone before me in your presentations and have shared so much value add to a world that desperately needs it. And it's my privilege and honor to share these moments together with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all of mine. And as you say, ours, especially for those that have also given value on the show. But I think most of the stuff they've given pales in comparison to what we're about to experience today. So I'm not going to take away from the life, the journey, and the expertise that you actually bring to the table. Now, for those that are watching right now, Dr. Bill Price is a man whose life's journey just reads like a movie script. And I must say, he was actually born in Bethlehem, and I'm talking about the one in South Africa there, but he was actually raised during apartheid by an African woman named Miriam, who actually taught him compassion and humanity. And also, he has now become known as the coach of leaders. We're going to hear all about what that entails and what that means. So by way of credentials, he is a master neuroplastician. He's going to tell us as well what that means before I start mincing my words. But in the words that we can understand, he's actually advised executives, royalty, and educators on how to activate the neuroscience of human potential. Now, he's basically bringing the soulful alive, that side of leadership that has been lacking in a lot of boardrooms and classrooms of late. So without me putting words into his mouth and trying to figure out things that might just jumble my brain, let the man, speak for himself. Now, Dr. Bill, thank you so much once again. And I know we're going to make a lot of deep dives, but let's start with the story. You were born in Bethlehem, raised during apartheid, and mentored by Miriam. Now, all of this is a contrast in everything else that we know about what South Africa is and should be. Tell us a little bit about your start in life and what that actually looked like for you.
So, Prosper, I was born in a little town called Bethlehem, and you're 100% right. I shared this fact at a conference in last week, and I shared the fact that Jesus couldn't have been born in Bethlehem in the Free State because they couldn't find 3 wise men in the entire region. So they moved it up north. And at the end of the conference, an elderly lady, I know she's elderly because she didn't only have gray hair, it was dyed like a purple. I don't know if you've seen those amazing ladies. And she walked up with her walking stick, bright and breezy, looked at me in the eye and said, my child. And then I knew, okay, so this is where you respect an elder. She says, there's another reason why Jesus wasn't born in the Free State in South Africa. So I said, Auntie, tell me tell me all about it. She leaned forward and with a gleam in her eye, she said, they couldn't even find a virgin there. So that's why they moved it up north. So I said to her, my word, Auntie, you naughty. For how old are you? She says, 89. And I have the right to be naughty and I have the right to say what I like. I said, well, I accept that. And so that was a moment. So I was born there. My father was a fire chief. My entire recollection of my father was that he was a fire chief. And my mother was a housewife and an opera singer, so she traveled South Africa from north to south, west to east, and was very much in demand. So from the age, from birth until about the age of 7, I have my solid recollections of my mother. But in that interim, we had Miriam, and she was a Sotho woman. In South Africa, we have 11 official languages, and then there are many tribes of Africans, and each tribe has a different culture. So that was the beginning of the drama of the architecture of apartheid. And so I grew up being mentored by her. I grew up it's a term called pebberback. So she'd take a blanket, she'd put me on her back, and then she'd strap the blanket around me and tie it up front. So my chest would be up against her back. And it was high enough so that I could look over the shoulder all the time. And it's interesting that when I remember, and I'm 70 years of age, when I intentionally sit back and just look at her photograph and remember Miriam. We've had the privilege of putting her children through education and college, just as an act of saying, there's great gratitude and thankfulness. So I was raised on African food, which is like porridge and spinach as a basic food. I was raised with African discipline. And African discipline is very different to any other discipline. You get the slap with a warning. Hey, Wena, what? And it's like any body part will do. The first one that's closest to it. So I was like, okay, when she says, hey, Wena, then I'm automatically ducking. But when I hear her singing, I feel the vibration in my chest because it was the resonance, the humming that took place. And growing up in apartheid was, as a white guy, that became a foundational experience for me. So by the time I was 19, then it was law that you had to go you were conscripted to the military. And so I then went into the military, into the artillery regiment. And it was then where we had the Anglo War in Angola, we had the border war in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and we had to go there and serve. And we were told by our corporals and our lieutenants, who were all white, that we now need to defend South Africa against communism. So that was the big drive as to why you'd become a soldier. You have to defend against communism. And I can remember very vividly when because I was confronted with the reality that I'm going to shoot someone or someone's going to shoot at me, and which they definitely did. So I have the experience of having bullets fly over your head. And so the apartheid meant that the whites were segregated, the Indian folks were segregated, the Asian people were segregated, the colored people were segregated. The colored people were from the Dutch settlers in 1820, and they settled there, and then some of them intermarried, and so their children were not white and they were not black, but they were colored. So they were like, they even called themselves like the in-between. Then I put my hand up during a lecture and I said, could you please at least describe for me what a terrorist looks like? Now, we were 18 years of age, very vulnerable. We were being trained. And I mean, these 18-year-olds won wars, battles for South Africa. And we were so disciplined in our approach and way of thinking. And so I put my hand up and I said, could you please explain to me what a terrorist looks like, so at least I know that I don't shoot the wrong person. And the corporal paused for a moment and he used a lot of profanity. And then he said, they are all black. And then I put my hand up and I said, I do not want to kill a black person. And he couldn't understand it. I mean, everybody turned around. That was a moment when the whole class kind of turns around and looks at you and goes, ooh. But I didn't tell the story that I was raised by an African woman, so therefore I had a deep connection. And so they took me off. They first wanted to put me in jail, and then because I was now anti-whatever, and then I said, no, you can put me in jail all you like. I still want to serve, but find another way. I mean, you can get me to serve in anything. So I served in the medical corps as a medic, and I served in the battalion as a medic, was trained. And because I lived in the fire station, I was already like a junior gold medalist in first aid and junior paramedics. And so then they put me into the section of the artillery where you are preparing the guns. So we fired the 8.8. The projectile weighed 80 pounds and was very accurate. You could take a person out of a tree if you wanted to. And so I was put there so that I wouldn't, but we were still fired upon. I mean, we had experiences. So being raised in apartheid, we were privileged in apartheid because everything, the laws, everything swayed towards the white population. So you were never concerned that you would not get a job. You were never concerned that you would not have a place in society, whereas the African and the coloreds and the Asian people and the Chinese people, they had their own homesteads where they stayed, and they had passes, so they had to be back home by 10 o'clock at night, or you get police catch you and you get thrown into jail. But Miriam, my father had to smuggle her into our home because at 10 o'clock she had to be in the house and she couldn't get out the house until the next morning. So she slept in our house, which was at that time pretty unknown. But it had a huge impact on my life in that it took my blinders off, and I had an open-mindedness towards other people and other races. And when Nelson Mandela was taken to prison because they said he was a terrorist and he was on his way to bomb and do all sorts of things, and he had 17 accusations against him, there was one faction in the white group that wanted him hanged, and then another group that said, no, just put him away. So they put him on Robben Island. And the fact that he was in Robben Island really interested me as a young person. And I was very, very, I tried to do all the research that I could, but we didn't have internet at that stage. And then when he was released from prison, he brought in a new South Africa. And I can remember very clearly the place at the World Trade Center where they all met, Kudesa, and they changed the constitution, and they changed everything. I lived within that change and began to see that from the time that he was released, he stood up one day and he said to the combined parliament of the time, he said, "You need to know that from the moment you inaugurate me as the president, from that moment, South Africa will never be the same again." And indeed, I saw that as a young adult. I lived through that. I lived, then the ANC took over. It all went well under Mandela. Then the President M.E.D.I.A took over. And then President Zuma took over, and he sold South Africa out with his socialist approach. We became rubbish status in the world. He sold it to the Guptas, and we were nearly bankrupt as a nation. And he was a horrible, terrible person. Still is very, very sly. And then the present one, Cyril Ramaphosa. They, for about 15 years of their 30-year tenure, ruled well. But in the last 15 years, Ramaphosa and we've got corruption. His cadre would go to any organization that has money, and then they would rob money. So where an invoice for an ordinary plastic bucket would be £2, they would sell it for £30,000. And that's how they used to make the money, legally. And then the person who's in charge of the money just pays that out. So they have been skimming off billions of rands in South Africa. And they're now getting to the stage where Trump doesn't like them, and where people here are openly against them and are propagating their shenanigans. So the drama of apartheid, and ANC always blame apartheid. And I'm saying as a neuroscientist, but hold on a minute, apartheid is in the past. So it exists in a reality of the past. It's gone. We voted it out. I was there. I voted for it to go out. So apartheid no longer exists. But the history of apartheid, and that's which people can't differentiate between. So the history of apartheid is there was higher education for whites, better than for the rest of the other cultures. But that is all turned around because now every culture can come to every school. So our schools have been flooded with an entire multinational approach. My grandchildren have got the opposite experience that I had. So all my grandchildren's friends are African. I've still got African friends. I've got a African son that I adopted who was the best friend of my son. And yeah, so they cannot tell the difference between the history, so they're blaming history. And they're saying the entitlement that we have to steal off the top is because of apartheid. So apartheid has made us entitled. But I'm going, you're an adult. You should have a morality. You should think about what are you doing? Because you're literally stealing. You're being corrupt. And but they can't see it. Everything is blamed on apartheid. And if you live in the past, you declare yourself as a victim. And if you live in the past, you declare yourself as a survivor. And in our neurology, in the energy and the consciousness within our body, which is presiding in the brain, either lives from the past or in the present, or focused in the present on the future. And depending on how you cognitively organize your thoughts, that's the way that you're going to live. So survivor mode is a mode of, I'm going to live in the past, I'm going to live with excuses and blame games. But my neurology wasn't born with that intrinsically as a part of it. We learned that. So our ego, our personality, our character was all formed by the past and is formed in the past. So I used to be a counseling psychologist, a pastoral psychologist, then an industrial psychologist, and then I moved into the brain, understanding the brain. And so I look at it and I'm going, I do not want to. So the brain is wetware. You've got light gray material, fatty material, mostly made up of cholesterol, and a fluid, the brain fluid, which contains water. So when you hear people talk about neuroscience, they say the brain has got water, our body is water, etc., etc. The brain does have water, but it's not everything in the brain is water. It's a percentage of it. The rest is a brain fluid as much as you have spinal fluid. The word neuroscience is the study of the brain, and then it's the brain and the central nervous system. So the central nervous system is this section that goes right down to the coccyx in your back. That's called neuroscience. So it's the study of the central nervous system, and then we have what is known as the periphery nervous system, and that's a system that goes from the spine to the tips of my fingers, the tips of my toes, my face, my nose, the ears. Everywhere there's a nerve ending. And so that's called neuroscience. Now, neuroplasticity is the flow of energy. And there are 7 energies in both of my nervous systems. And neuroplasticity is how the conscious mind, so the brain doesn't think. The brain can't think. The brain can't have emotions. The brain is simply a trampoline on which neuroplasticity. Inside this brain, there are 87 billion neurons. And then, so if my hand was a neuron, it has little tubes that go out of the neuron, and they connect with other neurons and their tubes, but the tubes don't touch. Is like a millimeter space, and that's called a synapsis, a gap. So the 7 energies are flowing through the tubes, and the energies that flow create thought. And thought, questions, emotions, feelings, the ability to make a decision, the ability to turn a decision into behavior, and then the ability to be able to give yourself self-permission to be able to be that behavior. And so I was introduced to neuroscience by a rabbi. I went through burnout as a leader, and I'm telling you that there's definitely life after burnout. There's also life after mathematics, because I failed mathematics when I was in grade 12. And you have got a cognitive mind. It's the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, called the executive part. And that's where you should be aware and where you should be conscious. But most people are not. They're just living in default mode. And the brain loves that, because the brain has got it's our greatest enemy. And here's our greatest enemy. The brain doesn't like change, and the brain doesn't want to change, but you can cognitively rewire your thinking to go, no, I'm going to change, and you're going to follow my lead. So I'm not a prisoner of my brain and my neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and I'm not a survivor of it. but within the magic and the beauty of the soulful aliveness of our DOS program. So neuroplasticity is like the DOS program of the computer, and then our personality, ego, character, temperament are like apps. So the Word app and the Excel app and the Numbers app and whatever app there is, those are the apps. They are not the brain. My personality is not my brain. It's not my, I have neuroscience in my neuroplasticity, but it is based on a habit forming app that created itself. And of course I was cognitive when I did it. So I create my own apps, but I'm not my apps. I am my DOS program. And the DOS program is where I can be soulfully alive, soulfully free. And that's what I zoom in. The value add that I bring to executives in coaching and leaders of leaders is I don't come in and do a personality profile. I am an alongsider. So Prosper, I come alongside executives and I stand next to them like a Jacob who went to his son Joseph and said, tell me about the dream that's in your life. I come along next to CEOs, their exco, their manco, and I ask this question, tell me about your dream for your own life, and then parallel to that, what is the dream that you have for your organization? That's termed a vision, and you create a mission with that. But because I know the brain, I don't bother about asking people, tell me about what's your goal. Because the brain...
Is it because if you ask them to tell them about their goal, they will just tell you what they think you want to hear, right?
Could be. It's also what they think they want to hear.
Right.
So I use a principle called beyond. We have the first African global coaching model in the world, which is based on neuroscience, neuroplasticity, Ubuntu principles. Ubuntu is the African principle of, and there's 17 principles built into Ubuntu, one of which I am because of you. There's huge respect. So the people that get coached by me sense a huge amount of respect. So I'm bringing my African past into my present, and I'm using it a filter through which I work with my present reality over here with executives. So I'm not asking personality questions, because personality questions are like the question why. And I've shared a YouTube on it, and Simon Sinek has written a book on it. But the reality is, the moment the neuroplasticity has the word why, it immediately goes into self-defense. It goes, and it has to now defend it. Why are you late? Can you feel it? It's like, now I have to defend myself.
It's like a confrontation. Yeah.
So I'm now going to protect myself. The second thing that the brain does with why, it doesn't know where to go and look. So when you say, why are you motivated to come to work every day? Why are you motivated to be a leader? Why this, why that? Then the instruction of intentionality goes into the mind, and now it has to open up files to go, oh God, let me first find out where's why. What does it mean why? And then you hear the person going into a debate, and they will talk themselves into a solution when you ask the question why. So in coaching, I train coaches to be incisive. So you ask what, when, where, who, how, and you put a number to it. What three things did we not pay attention to that created the financial dilemma of not achieving our goals this month? Then you have an incisive question, and the brain loves to be incisive. Our consciousness has incisiveness built into it. It has intentionality built into it. It has a huge amount of intelligence beyond ourselves. And so I use the methodology of beyond. An African female Olympian athlete, champion of champions, was interviewed, and I had the privilege of watching it. And she gave the term that I was doing. I didn't know what to call it. And the interviewer asked her, "What's the one thing?" Now, the moment someone says, "What's the one thing?" you've got my attention. I stop chewing. I stop sipping my drink while I'm watching television. I no longer become a couch potato. Now I'm like leaning forward. And he says, "What's the one thing that your coach taught you that was the domino? If you touch that, everything else fell. What was the one thing that he taught you that impacted the rest of your journey in your identity to be the champion that you are today?" Now, that's a well-formed question. I saw her sit back, stare. She pondered, and I read eye movement, and she was in auditory mode, which is horizontal, left and right. And she said, "That is a very interesting question." And then she paused. She said, "I've got it." She goes, "I got it, I 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 got it." He said, "What is it?" She said, "He taught me to look beyond." He recorded my running at full speed, and we would play that back. And I would look at every single muscle that was moving with every single stride so that we knew which muscles to focus on in the gym. And then we noticed when I came near to the finish line, I would be nearly 3 seconds where my body, if that was the finish line, I would be 3 seconds, and then I would lean forward and I would win by a head, like racehorses do. And then the rest of my body, my bum and my legs, would take 1,001, 1,002, 1,003 to cross the line. And he said, "You can win 3 seconds by looking beyond." And he taught me to look 50 meters beyond. And so before I get into my lane, I walk from the finish line, but I look 50 meters beyond and I choose a place. It could be a flag, a banner, whatever is there. And that is my focal point. And I'm going to run through the finish line in full speed. And I will only stop 10, 15 meters after the finish line. And then he taught me to even look beyond that. And he says, "Look at them putting the medal over your neck and hang it on your neck. That's your beyond." So you don't run to win. You run to gain the prize. So if I ask executives, "Tell me, what is it that you want? What are your needs? What are your expectations?" That's the finish line. But I coach people beyond their personal potential. So they know I got the stats. Their body represents the stats. I'm running and I am a champion and I'm eating right. My body is a representation of what is known as neuro-wellness. I'm drinking enough water. I'm getting enough sleep. I am getting enough nutrition. I'm paying attention to drinking certain pills, etc. I am soulfully alive. I'm cognitive in my thinking and aware. And so in my neuro-wellness, I'm bringing that to play. You're watching my neuro-wellness happening. It's been conditioned to run the mile at so many minutes or seconds.
Now, Bill, is that the reason? Could that be the reason why so many leaders feel stuck, because they've got that end point pegged, and as soon as they hit that point, especially maybe it's a quarterly revenue target or maybe like a promotion, then is that how people get stuck and maybe burnout because they don't know what's beyond?
Yeah, I call it the 3-second stuck.
Mm-hmm.
If leaders set a goal, they're going to run, and that's why the brain, because if you give the brain the goal, it's the finish line. The moment the brain recognizes I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the finish line, the brain makes an executive decision by itself through the autonomic nervous system. And that's a nervous system that partly cannot be changed, but partly can be influenced. So the moment the brain watched this athlete, and the moment she came 3 seconds to the finish line, her brain said, okay, you're so close to your goal, the momentum will carry you through. And she slowed down 3 seconds, and that's called brain fog or fuzziness. And the brain literally turns off the energy, and she slows down for 3 seconds. And that's where executives are. I've got an executive that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He's also climbed Mount Everest. And my question to him was, wow, that's interesting. Could you recall a moment when you were at the top? He said, at Everest, you didn't have a long time because of oxygen. You had to get down again. And I said, so take me through it, frame for frame. And he said, I surveyed and I saw other mountaintops, etc. And he said, there was a question that popped up. What's my next goal? Brain fog is when executives have a goal, and that goal has to be replaced by another goal, and the brain will operate exactly the same. Come on, guys, we're near. We has the statistics, we're measuring, we're using a matrix. Come on, guys, we've only got another X amount of million to do before the end of the year in our target. Our target, our target, our target, our target, our target. And they forget the real target is themselves. I coach executives to go, you are the champion. You must set a significant objective. So that's the words that I use, significant objective. You do not, or purposeful objective. You do not want to talk about goals. All these parapsychologists are going, you must have a goal, you must have a goal. I'm going, no. There's something deeper than a goal. What's deeper than a goal is, Prosper, what's deeper than a goal is meaning. I want to lose weight. That's a goal. What will it mean to you when you achieve that goal? That's beyond. And I help executives to look, I'm the one that has chosen that goal based on my experiential wisdom, my business, my acumen, my education, etc., etc. And that's another trap that executives fall in because they go, I don't need a coach. I'm happy being the same.
No.
So if you want to know what sameness is and goal orientated every single time, we just create another goal, but the brain's going to operate exactly the same. 3 seconds before the goal, going to switch off the energy and I'm going to glide through instead of run at full speed, because executives are executives because they are not driven, they are magnetized by success. That's why a leader passionately impact people, because he or she understands the journey of success. But they don't see that. They don't experience it, that they're blind to that. A lioness is lying in the Kruger Park in South Africa, and she's looking at a herd of zebra running by. And if you want to know what brain fog, what stuck state means, here it is.
Yeah, everything is just everywhere. Now, Bill, if you would maybe indulge me for a second here, because what you're talking about, obviously, neuroscience sounds very intimidating, okay? But you're actually making it sound very soulful. A lot of people that are operating from their brain will want to have those targets, but what you're saying is go beyond. And when you go beyond, I feel like going beyond has a bit of spirituality to it, because then you're now believing in things that are way bigger and further than you are. Now, how do you manage to blend this spirituality and actual science of, working with the brain and getting people to actually understand that? Because we are brought to think this life is what you've got. So you've got a certain amount of hours or whatever it is, but you're saying go beyond that. Go further than that. Go outside. It's very intrinsic. Or am I catching what you're actually saying right there?
You're correct, Prosper, what I do with the executives, going beyond means that you believe in your personal potential being greater than what you've defined it as. That's called a comfort zone. So the moment you and I as an executive live with 5 successes, the brain grabs hold of that, or our neuroplasticity, the intelligence in the neuroplasticity does it. It takes those 5 successes and then it stores it automatically. Now, in our neuroplasticity, we have 7 memory levels, one of which, the last one of which is our essence, my being. And that's where beyond lies. It doesn't lie beyond the finish line, it lies in me. And so when I believe in beyond, I believe that I can, and I believe in possibility, and I believe consciously. So the work that I do with the executives, the first thing that I begin to do is to help them to work with so you become the orchestra conductor of all your energies, of all your power, of all your purpose, of all your potential. And you can only do that when you are consciously aware. There are 4 levels of consciousness. The first shallow level of consciousness is it's all about me. That's a goal setter. I want, I must, I have to, I've got to. And life is all about me. Oh, God, help the world. If stuff goes wrong, then how can the world be so bad to me? How can apartheid, because that's where apartheid takes many of the people who are thinking about it, they're living in their own prison of the past. Apartheid court. And I'm talking to young people, I'm going, you weren't even born in apartheid, and now you're so passionate to be against it. You've been taught that way by your parents. You've been taught that way by society. You weren't there when it happened. I was there. And I had the opposite effect. And I had the opposite effect after Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as president. I cannot even quote at a business it's called BEE, BBEE, Black Economic Empowerment. And that's why Elon Musk has refused to come to South Africa with his internet, is simply because BEE says by law, and it's a racist law, whites cannot have the joy of being an entrepreneur and own your own company. If you want to get proposals from any of the government entities, and they're forcing every single company to go BEE. I've put in 2 quotes as an entrepreneur, and I have to have a BEE certificate that is certified to say that 50% of my business has been given to Black folks, mainly Black. They don't want coloreds, they don't want Asian, they don't want Indian. It must be Blacks. So what's happened? ANC government has said, we will own that. And so only Cyril Ramaphosa and his cronies are now, any contract in the world, they ripped off billions of rand in COVID. Why? Because there's a select few of Black people that they appoint. And they said to Elon Musk, we'll appoint your 30% of your business that must be owned by Black people, and that Black people don't have to pay for anything. No capital, no shareholding, nothing investment, but they become a shareholder. And Elon Musk says, I'm not going to give 30% of my company away. I will give 30% away to things like education, etc., but I'm not going to give any money to the government because I know I can't trust you. You've got a history. And so now they're angry at him. And he can't come in, but he's persistent with it and he's standing his ground. So your legacy of your past, how you think about things, either puts you into a survival mode, and in the neurology, that's stress. So stress mode is where I'm being driven. I stop executives from being driven and I coach them to being drawn by your beyond. You're being drawn by your beyond. And when you're being drawn by beyond, your inner resources are engaged like a cog, not like a circle.
Let's talk about, because you also have something called purposeful objectives rather than goals, and I think that's sort of lead into that. Well, what's the actual difference, and how can somebody who's actually listening today maybe reframe their to-do list, into something that is truly purpose driven?
The first thing we need to do is become consciously aware of the inbuilt linguistics of my neuroplasticity. So inside my neuroplasticity are words that have been used over and over and over and over and over again. And the neuroplasticity has got words in it that are already connected to meaning. I have got to learn, where do these words take me? Because a word only has power when you are aware of its energy, when you are aware of the emotion that it forms, and when you are aware of the question that pops up when you use that word, or the thought that pops up when you use that word. I intentionally ingrain into the executive. So I'm going, here's words that you must stop using. So you have to cognitively unlearn things. Number one, why? Stop asking why. You'll ask what, when, where, who, and how, and put a number in it, not more than 4. How come we didn't see these 3 things happening? What 4 things, when we did these 3 things? So you become cognitively aware and incisive in the way in which you reflect on life and reflect on yourself. You change the word try to the word I'll do it and learn. The word try already has defeat built into it. My wife says to me, let's have coffee. And she says, I would like us to have every 14 days a date night, but we're not going to be talking about the grocery list, or we're going to be talking about the things to fix. I'm going to ask you questions. How are you? What you're doing? What are you feeling? Where are you in your dream? How have you shifted in this year? And we have a ritual. Every year there's a weekend we take away and we unpack who's the new Bill, who's the new Estelle. I've shifted in my spirituality. I'm no longer a churchgoer. I've shifted in my sense of being. I'm 70 years of age, but I'm believing in longevity so that I can walk my 20-mile march to the end. I don't know what that year is. I'm ready anytime, but I realize that I'm going to outlive my father and my mother and my grandfather. And that's my beyond. I've got to be around to be able to fulfill my dream. And beyond, you set that goal, that purposeful intention on the inside of you. And that's what I do intentionally. The first thing is I raise and heighten self-awareness. Second thing I do is I help them to become self-regulated. So you regulate your mind. You regulate the thoughts that come in and formed on the inside, and you regulate how to transform those thoughts and how to change the past. I help people with rewiring the traumas of the past. They don't need to go to a counselor for 7 months and pay them every week 2,000 Rand, because that's psychology. It's very narcissistic in its essence, all about me, you, and oh, shame, you to blame. That's
now is that the reason why, Bill, you always call it that it's always your fault? Because I feel like for a lot of people that's a little bit confronting. They don't understand. I think maybe it then gets them to, really focus on taking ownership of whatever is happening around them. That way they
Prosper, you hit the nail on the head. 100% high five. So when I teach people you've got to reprogram what has been programmed, but you don't delve on the past. I say, let's create a new neural path. And the new neural path takes you from stress, distress to thrive. Now, thrive is where meaning is engaged. And so you change all your goals into thriving, meaning objectives. That is purposeful. And to do that, you've got to change your language. So in the morning, you wake up, you open up your eyes, and you say, today, it's all my fault. It's not my fault what happens to me, but it's my fault how I respond to what happens to me. So if I respond negatively with anger, etc., that's my fault. Stop blaming the world. You go, you made me so angry. That's crap. Nobody can make you. So if I say to you, okay, Prosper, I want you to be angry. Please be angry, 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 be angry, be angry. And I bump you and I slap you on the face. That would possibly create some form of anger where you go, okay, stop, I'm going to grab hold of your hands. So I can influence you with external. But if you had to say right in the beginning, when I'm starting to influence you, hold on a minute, this is going to go to the wrong place. And you just go, excuse me, I don't want to be treated like this. I'll see you. And off you go. You walk away. That is a thriving choice. I have been in control of and self-control. So in neurology, we don't have willpower. That's a psychological term that we've swallowed thousands of years. We do not have willpower. We have self-control. It was inbreathed into us in creation. And that's why we became a living soul. And we weren't spoken into existence like trees and flowers and birds and animals and the world and the universe and stars. We were cautiously molded. And the Creator paused and he molded us and made us, we are his handiwork. And that's the other thing, I'm going to respect that. For goodness sake, respect that. And when you respect your neurology, when you honor it as a gift from God or the universe or whatever you want to phrase there, when you respect that and you honor that and you use that skillfully, then you're being self-resilient. You come out of things, you bounce back, you overcome, you go beyond, you move ahead. And that's what I do with coaching. I don't come with personality models or character models because that just puts you in a box. And the moment you follow character and personality, you move into generalization. It's like, oh yes, oh yeah. But
you take people alongside, you go alongside people and, you do the CM talks and the Mentor Me programs. Could you maybe just walk us through what that looks like in terms of leadership development and how that's different from any of the traditional stuff that's out there?
So traditional coaching could involve, and there's so many nuances of coaching, it's like very scary to read. There's a laughing coach, so you can deploy a laughing coach and you just laugh when you look at your balance and you laugh when you look at your failures and going, okay, and I'm going, okay, so what? At the end of it, the big question.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? You just feel happy for a moment, but you feel no joy. Then all sorts of coaches are coming up now. The coaching process, there's an organization called Action Coach, and they've got a systematic approach. So they will go, here's a coaching tool, and you must do this. Now, they are excellent with small, medium enterprise where those people need those tools. They have not yet developed them, and it's an entrepreneur that's running the business and not a person with a CEO mind. Everything starts in thinking. It's my fault. How I think about things. So I've got to take ownership. The moment I say it's my fault, I realize that I've got to take ownership of my next question, my next thought, my next decision, my next behavior, and take the consequences for that, which are not always easy. Coming alongside a person is to make them aware of their journey. And it's interesting that the prophet came to the planet and then his first sermon was, repent, for the kingdom is at hand. And the Greek word for repent is the Greek word metanoia, which means change the way that you think. The first message, change the way that you think. And that's in your neurology, in your neuroplasticity. So I do that. I come alongside as a longsider, and I'm interrupting the sameness, the fuzziness of the executive, the same way of thinking. And this could be very successful. This could be very successful. I can't see the zebra that I want for lunch. So the lioness then steps back and focuses to the right, if the herd is running this way, and looks and says, okay, there's lunch, that one that's running alone. Can't choose in here and doesn't want to run in here because that's called chaos and complexity. So the VUCA world, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, is what the executive faces. And they're facing this fuzzy world of things that they don't want to run into it. They go for caution. We pause. And the coach is there as an alongsider to help them to go, what are you pausing about? What are you thinking? I get people to think about what they're thinking. Animals can't do that. Animals are not logical. They are driven by drives and survival, etc. So we're not an animal. We are higher than an animal in the levels of consciousness. Now, when we look at this, I come along as a longsider. I'm saying, standing next to the executive and their team and going, so you've designed this vision called a strategy. What do you see there? Where's success? What does that look like? And then I ask questions. Could success be more than what you've and they'll go, yeah, it could be more. There's a possibility it could be more, but they haven't intentionally thought about that. So that's where I come in as an alongside. I'm going, so what if I could help you to intentionally think about that? You will go beyond. I was coaching in a sugar factory, international sugar organization here in South Africa. And I coached there for 3 years, changed a CEO, changed the executives to become directors of their own particular company. So the departments suddenly became separate companies. And at the end of the 3 years, they did a measurement, which I insist on. And the financials is where the world happens. And they, at the end of the third year, had 68% more profit after tax than the previous 2 years. And the financial director, Gerard, said, I have measured it, and Dr. Price's influence on us, when I take our personal performance and all of that, Dr. Price's influence on us was at 56% influence. And it was that 56% shift of thinking, shift of being, shift of awareness that created 68% of profit after tax in return on investment. That the holding company, Johan Rupert, president, called and said to him, what did you do? And he said, we deployed Dr. Bill. And he said, well, who's this guy? And then I got a call and had to share some of the things that I was paying attention to. But I shift consciousness to consciously aware. And I shift out of the fog for clarity. I shift awareness because when you look at the different departments, they're like two circles. They are silos in their design. They talk to each other, but they don't talk with each other. They don't talk about the common purpose of the company with each other. So I turn silos into cogs. So every department in an organization becomes a cog. They are interlinked, they are interconnected, they are intercollaborative. And just by doing that, a lot of people think the industrial psychologists come in with a questionnaire. A questionnaire is going to solve this thing. Another model is going to solve this thing. No. Use your neuroplasticity. 80% of neuroplasticity is interpersonal connected. So my neuroplasticity is connected. I am sick because of a thought that is connected to an energy, that is connected to a cell, that is connected to a molecule, that is connected to an organ, and that organ is being influenced by my negativity. 64% of people in hospital are there because of a psychosomatic induced sickness. I'm not saying all sickness is that way. It's other things are the virus, etc. But so that's what I do. I put them in what I call a total immersion journey. I walk with you for a minimum of 10 to 12 months because nothing happens in 2 coaching sessions. No. If a coach promises you that, tell them go home, you're a liar. So I walk with them, and the change takes place cognitively, and it takes place at the pace of the unveiling of the beyond or the meaning in the executive. So I get executives to go, stop setting goals, set the fact that you're a champion. Who are you in the next 5 years where you want to take this company? That is the goal.
Absolutely. The you. Where can people go to on the internet, Dr. Bill, to start these journeys with you or find out more information about how to get a hold of you, Dr. Viraj?
The best would be to email me at this stage. My IT champion is coming in today, and we're redesigning the website and whatever. But the best way to contact me would be my email, and it's my first and second name. It's Bill, all small caps, .price@me.com. Bill.price@me.com. And you'll get me.
I love that. I'll definitely make sure that all that information is put in the show notes so that people can work on that. But you're talking about, you've worked with so many people. I didn't even get a chance to congratulate you on the work that you've done alongside King Goodwill Zwelithini of the Zulu Kingdom. And obviously he's one person that has also left a legacy of being the king for about 50 years or so, and you had an opportunity to work alongside with him, just like what it is that you do. And you also had people like Miriam walking alongside with you and all the other people that were doing it, whether they were really in your person or they were also in the part of the books that you have behind you there. Now, finally, what sort of legacy do you hope to leave behind with the work that you're doing? Because it is quite a lot and it is dense, and you literally are giving people back to themselves. Because if you can master this, I think you can master just about everything else that comes along with your life. And so many people, as you have said, have been fooled or have been lured to think they have no control whatsoever. And I would like to think that if your legacy ensues and is walking alongside these people, what do you want people to really grasp from the work that you're doing?
I watched Prince William in the United Kingdom talk to a interviewer, and he asked him, what's your dream for the future? And he said, there's change, etc. And I looked at him and I felt quite sorry for him, because he has advisors. They are not a coach, they are an advisor. A coach is a person who is neutral. A coach is a person who comes alongside and says, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Gets you to think about it, and you create your own destiny. My legacy lies in that. I want to empower people to create their own destiny. My legacy is very clearly in a non-profit organization called Future Focused Minds Africa Global, where on a scale I'm going to be focusing on the 32 Anglo-African nations and other nations across the world to influence educators. So my legacy is to pay attention who the movers and shakers that influence brains. And the first person would be parent, the second person would be your teacher. And so my legacy is to download how to teach the brain, how to tutor the brain, because the brain has to be intentionally coached. If you do not open the 5 gates of learning that's inbuilt in our neuroplasticity, what's interesting? What does it mean for you? Can you reflect on it? When you don't open those 5 gates, you're going to get 37% return on investment on everything that you do, training programs, etc. But when you engage the brain intentionally and you dance with the brain, so here is one of my symbols I have on my desk. My wife and I have the dance as our metaphor for relationship, but I also dance in coaching, and you dance with your neuroscience and your neuroplasticity. And the dance is based on the tempo, is based on the music sometimes. The only dance I don't do is rap music. I'm going, oh Lord, how do it looks like a person's got an electric shock. That's not dancing. I don't know what that is. But so my legacy is to train educators to train the brain, because when you've trained the brain on how to think and how to take "it's my fault" into ownership, you've shifted from changing someone to watching someone moving from change to transformation to eventually transcendence. And you can only transcend and transform when you say goodbye to change. Change is, that's what change is.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Dr. Bill Price. What an incredible conversation. I mean, your life story and your experience and all your learnings have so much value for quite a lot of people that are just really trying to navigate their day to day. And I think if somebody who is watching this, has taken into session what you're saying, there's quite a lot that they can actually grab from this. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are watching right now, if this episode has sparked something in you, or maybe that quiet voice saying, I'm ready to rewire how I think or how I lead or how I live, I encourage you to check out drbillprice.com, and there will be enough information for you to actually get started. And I will also put the link to his email so that you can maybe reach out if you've got any questions, or is there anything that you want clarified. And as he has said, he will definitely walk alongside with you. And I do encourage you to rewatch this video, because there was quite a lot that was put in between this maybe 50 or so minutes that we've had with Dr. Bill Price here. So I really, really want you, to rewatch this so that you can realign your purpose and also, start working towards a happier existence. As Dr. Bill has said, most of these things are a product of our own creation, and it's how we react to some of these things that then determine how we actually proceed in life. So I'm posing a question to you who's watching right now. What's one belief about yourself that you're ready to rewire today? And I think if you use some of the methods and methodologies that Dr. Bill Price has led in this call today, you definitely will be able to be on your journey to transformation. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this information. Bye for now.